Welcome everyone for our last session of the day. It's great to all see you here. I'd like to introduce Andrew Morris from the Mid Coast Council of New South Wales, and he's presenting on linking the tops to the lakes.
G'day guys. Thanks for making it. Thanks for making it to the end. You guys really are the true believers. Congratulations for getting through it all. So my name's Andrew Morris, Catchment Management Coordinator for Mid Coast Council. I suppose there's two things I kind of wanted to talk about before I get into my presentation. Firstly, this project was not all me. Hopefully it's clear through the presentation, but I just happened to be the lucky one standing here talking about it. There could be, there even should be, a crowd of 20-odd landholders, Landcare, government agency reps behind me jostling for the microphone. But that's just me. So I'd like to profoundly acknowledge all those guys that kind of made this thing happen. I suppose secondly, I really struggled on how to present this. I can talk about the project itself till the cows come home, but I wasn't really sure what the actual message was that I wanted to get out. And it's really interesting, the last two guys that just talked really kind of brought up similar themes of just how complex and messy these projects are. And I was never sure, how do you kind of tie it up into a nice bow that I can present? Because there's so many, it's over a long period, there's so many funding sources, all these stakeholders, people come, people go. And it was almost sort of listening to the talks over the last couple of days that complexity is the point. Like, what you guys do, what we do, is deal with complex, messy projects. That's what you guys are good at. It's what Landcarers are good at, bringing people in together to tackle these big, messy projects. And I thought I should probably just, just acknowledge that. And yeah, I just want you guys to really appreciate that. And that's my little public service announcement from today. Firstly, Mid Coast Council is on the traditional lands of the Gatang-speaking people. Pay my respect to past, present, emerging elders and traditional knowledge holders, and acknowledge the enduring connection to country of all Aboriginal people, and also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on today. So firstly, a bit about me and where I'm from. Mid Coast Council is a large LGA on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, stretching from the north shore of Port Stephens to just shy of Port Macquarie in the north and west of the Barrington Tops National Park. Our LGA is about 10,000 square kilometres, or the size of Jamaica, or I saw a similar presentation last week and I learnt that's also the same size as Lebanon. But regardless, it covers about 10% of the New South Wales coast as well. For all that size, our population is only about 90,000 people. So I mentioned that we've got the Barrington Tops on our western boundary, which is the southern extent of the Gondwana Rainforests of Australia World Heritage Area, which obviously stretches all the way up to sort of west of where we are now. We've also got the internationally recognised Myall Lakes Ramsar wetlands, which sit within Myall Lakes National Park. I've highlighted the Kuru River catchment here, which kind of exemplifies this sort of tops to lakes goal that we're trying to achieve, where we've got the Barrington Tops up the top and then Myall Lakes down the bottom. And this is how it all kind of connects together. So a brief little comment on connectivity. You guys know this, but I suppose in the past, habitats and ecosystems were intact and well connected. Today, there are multiple barriers which serve to carve up our landscape into isolated islands. Those barriers can be as thin as a fence, or a road, or a whole city. On the east coast of Australia, the Great Eastern Ranges Initiative was created as a response to the urgent need to curb the loss of native species and reverse habitat loss, fragmentation and degradation across eastern Australia. Now, despite my claims to being as big as Jamaica or Lebanon, Australia is a big country and the mid-coast is only sort of one small dot on the edge of the Great Eastern Ranges corridor. In that context, through our ongoing Tops to Lakes initiative, we're working to connect those ecosystems, working from the bottom up to the top, and to create those linkages from the Barrington Tops all the way down to the Myall Lakes. I guess if the Great Eastern Ranges is the spine running along eastern Australia, our focus is shoring up that important rib that sort of connects us to the spine. Now, as you guys all know, none of this is simple. 2/3 of our LGA is private land, and that would be a pretty similar ratio across the rest of the country. And that land is managed for a huge diversity of outcomes. Now I'm going to run you through several recent projects which are all linked through a partnership with Landcare Australia to sort of slowly break down these barriers and provide linkages between these islands of habitat from the Barrington Tops down to the Marl Lakes, the tops to the lakes. So now we're going to sort of zoom in again on the site. We're looking at the northern shore of Port Stephens, and that sort of river pointing up through the middle, that's the Cooroa River, and the Branch River is one of its tributaries coming in on the side, probably the largest sub-catchment of the overall Cooroa River catchment. So there's two projects I'm going to talk about today. First is the Durness-Borland Landcare Corridor, and the next one is the Cooroa-Borland Landcare project, which was the second project that 10 years later grew out of the original partnership from the first site. The proximity of these projects isn't a coincidence. The geographic sort of linkages between the original and subsequent projects were central to the second one occurring. And so I suppose this is a story that starts 15 years ago, but is still going today despite changes in landholders, organisational mergers, staff changeover, retirements, you name it. And the key reason why is persisted and continues to persist and grow and change are the strong relationships and partnerships made by all those sort of key actors involved in the project, who've then been open to letting new people come in and taking it forward for that next step. I wasn't around for the start of the project. I probably won't be there for the end of the project either, but I'm sort of happy to hand the torch on to the next person at some point. So the first project, the Durness-Borland Landcare Corridor. Way back in the early 2000s, everyone's wearing cargo pants and listening to Britney Spears, but Landcare Australia approached Mid-Coast Council at that time, formerly Great Lakes Council, about opportunities associated with the Raymond Borland bequest funding. So the criteria was they were looking for viable projects in targeted hotspot areas with someone with whom council already had an existing relationship. Unfortunately, in a coastal region, probably similar to here, there's not a whole lot of large properties with single owners. However, so we approached the Nepean Group, who owned the 4,000 hectare Durness property just north of Tea Gardens on the Pacific Highway. And serendipitously, the concept of this project aligned with their manager's own aspirations to establish an internal cell grazing project. So under the agreed concept, creek lines were used as the focus for dividing fences, allowing the creation of riparian corridors across the property connecting to the Durness swamp system, which has also been protected under a PVP as part of the project. This involved the installation of 32 kilometres of stock exclusion fencing, protecting 5 separate local wildlife corridors, each 80 metres wide. 71 hectares were revegetated through the project, and 21 hectares of remnant vegetation was protected. Some 50,000 plants went in to create these corridors. This is pretty wild. Like that was just one paragraph, but it's a lot in there. And so I suppose here we can see Troy, the original manager of the property, putting some plants in with his kids. It's one of the field days connected to the project, and those green lines on the map are those corridors. So seems all very simple when you put it up there, but essentially it was a cell grazing system which instead of separating the paddocks with a single fence line, it just happened to be a fence line that was 80 metres wide with vegetation and a creek in the middle of it. It's pretty cool. Now let's see if the technology works. I really struggled to get my head around the project, so this is a shot of it from 2010 and then again in 2025 of just one little section. Yeah. Okay, so for the second part of the project, I thought I'd quickly just sort of recenter where we are. So we've got this Durness project, which I just discussed, is the orange site on the eastern side, and the more recent projects are here on a bit to the west. Now this second project, this is probably pretty similar for a lot of people on the East Coast. This was my drought/fire/flood/COVID project. Does anyone else have one of those where you thought it was going to be 12 months, but it actually wasn't? It's 3 years. And again, back on that complexity thing, we're all good at managing complex projects. We're excellent at negotiating things. We're excellent at keeping funding bodies at arm's length while we finish these projects. Saying yes. I know I told you last month that it was too dry to plant. Now I'm telling you it's too wet. It's okay. It will happen. Yeah, trust me. I know I said that last month. So this is the project. So the relationship that was built up through the original Durness project and its success led to another opportunity in 2017. Council and Landcare Australia agreed to commit 600 grand to a funding application, 50-50, to the NAB Environmental Resilience Grants Program. Through our council projects and available funding, we wanted to focus on the Cooroora River catchment. The branch subcatchment in particular had been identified as having elevated poor water quality in comparison to the wider Cooroora River, so we wanted to sort of focus in there. And while the foreshore of the branch and Cooroora Rivers was in smaller holdings, 100-acre lots, the vast majority of the branch subcatchment was actually owned by a single landholder, and so we wanted to try and work with them. We also wanted to link this project conceptually and geographically with the Durness project. And the other sort of key theme underlying this was that there is a significant intensive poultry farming industry in the Cooroora River catchment. So maybe 30-odd active intensive farms up there. And the litter produced from these farms has a high potential to impact the river when stored or applied inappropriately. Now, the program we applied for was ultimately unsuccessful, but we did have this commitment from both parties to put the money on the table, so we thought we'd try and see what else we could do. And this is what we did. All right, quick little sidebar. The slide I'm about to show you is messy. I realise that. I just wanted to try and pull it all together to sort of get it all together there for you. So we're able to turn this initial seed funding, I guess, into well over sort of $2 million investment in that Cooroora River catchment from state and local government, non-government bodies like Landcare, and not to mention the landholders themselves who contributed cash and in-kind contributions to getting us all across the line. I feel like that landholder cash contribution aspect often gets overlooked, but in this project and so many other projects, it's often significantly more sort of 2/3 type thing compared to the cash that the government puts in, which is what we all sort of talk about. So through this project, we partnered with Hunter Local Land Services through their MEMS program, their Marine Estate Management Strategy program, and they essentially managed this. They put in funding. They also did some water quality monitoring as part of it. And through that project, we got 8 landholders involved in the branch subcatchment who protected 270 hectares of wetlands and 30 hectares of riparian corridors. We also got the one big landholder involved as well. And I'll kind of come back to him later, but we essentially remediated a big eroding gully. Now, this all sort of came out of Joelle Dunn, the local Landcare coordinator, organised a traditional Landcare barbecue where council and LLS staff came and presented this idea, and that was way back in 2018. And from that, everything sort of grew out of it. But I guess at that initial meeting, while standing up there and asking the landholders to do something on their land to protect the wetlands and improve water quality, the main thing that they said back to me was, what are you going to do about the roads? Because the branch lane, which sort of passed through that subcatchment, was probably one of the biggest contributors of sediment to the river in the area. So that kind of gave us an incentive to then go back to council and say, look, They want to, if we're asking them to clean up their backyard, we need to do ours too. And so we got council who are planning to seal another road in the area, basically, to concentrate on the branch. And they did maybe 1 kilometre in that first section, and then through the state government program, we got some additional funding to seal sort of the creek crossings further down the road. With that contribution from council, we're also able to leverage that to another half dozen sites across the LGA. So it turned into a massive project from that initial sort of investment, which again came out of that original Landcare meeting and I suppose the demands from the members. So it was cool. The final theme was that intensive poultry farm thing. So I'll touch on this briefly, but I could probably talk all day on the intensive poultry farming stuff. So if you want to chat chook with me, hit me up later. But basically, with support from Landcare, we applied for an environmental trust grant. We put a percentage of that 600 grand into this grant and turned that into a 3-year project working with those intensive poultry farmers, basically to do sort of nutrient mapping of their properties, sort of stolen from the dairy industry. Because most of these poultry farms, for sort of biosecurity reasons, have big buffer lands around their sheds. So they've all got most of them have all got a grazing business on the sideline. And they've also got access to cheap fertiliser as well. So we did nutrient mapping with them all, with a lot of them, and sort of said, look, paddocks 1, 2, 3, probably never need any more litter on there. The phosphorus levels in there will burn your ass if you sit on the grass. And whereas paddocks 4, 5, 6 up on the hill, sure, you can put a bit more litter there. It's sort of just a good opportunity to then talk about why they're putting the litter on there, where it's going, what they're doing with it. Also did a whole lot of on-ground works with them, sort of protecting riparian areas, off-stream watering. A couple of guys put guttering on their sheds because these sheds were sort of depositing concentrated flows into the range areas, which are these high nutrient areas, and then it was sort of washing down. And so diverting that water around them had pretty good outcomes. So just sort of ducking back to those branch properties, these are the 8 properties all sort of zoomed in. The green areas are sort of what they protected. Pretty significant chunks. That big blobby one, that was over 100 hectares of wetlands, coastal wetlands that he's sort of fenced out. There's a koala population down there, grey crown babblers. Really, really cool project. And getting all the neighbours together, it's wild. This is Brian Royce standing next to his fence. He was probably, biggest critic early on, but he got sort of dragged across the line by his neighbour, Rod Zamanek, and he's really turned into our biggest sort of advocate for the project now. It's really cool. He will tell anyone that goes down there that before all this was done, the cattle would spend all day hanging out in the salt marsh and the mangroves and then come up and the cowpats would create these massive salt scalds on in the pasture and no grass would grow there. Now he doesn't have that problem, and he really loves it. It was really cool. That's just one of the field days that we ran on there after the projects were completed.
What's the white section there? Is that a landholder that didn't become involved?
Yeah, it is.
Isn't that amazing?
It is, yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're actually talking to that, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 landholders, definitely talking to one of the landholders in that spot now about a subsequent project. She'll probably come on board. And it just points out it's just the timing. She had some stuff going on at the time and didn't get involved, but now's a good time to sort of get involved. So slowly closing the loop. Now this is call it the major demonstration project. So we did the 100-acre lots, and then this is the really big property that kind of links the 2 areas. And so got the 8 properties there on the western side, or the G8 as they call themselves, and then the Durness property on the other side. So this is, it's one of the largest properties in the LGA, probably 2/3 of that whole branch subcatchment. And I guess council and other agencies had tried over the years to engage with the landholder, but never really sort of got too far. Through the project, we tried again and got Grant, who had recently started taking over from his dad, who we previously dealt with. And again, it was just that just good timing, because he took us out and showed us these active eroding gully lines on his property, which were depositing sediment into Port Stephens Estuary. And I don't fully know the background of them. They were probably historically put there to sort of drain the area, I would imagine. They've kept going. As part of Local Land Services' contribution to this project, they contracted Soil Conservation Services to come out and assess a whole lot of sites. And then, so they had sort of identified multiple sites to focus on. And then through discussion with Grant, we just focused on this one particular head cut, which was threatening the main access route and the fence line behind it and a large wetland behind that. I think the big thing to come out of this project was it was an opportunity to work with him, make sure he didn't get his fingers burnt, we didn't sort of do anything wrong, and then we can come back later and do something bigger and better. So this is what it looked like beforehand. This is one of the sites afterwards. We've got four bed control structures in there, and then we fenced it out, sort of a 600 metre section, and re-vegged it. That's Grant walking through, checking on the plants, and Kirby Byrne from Local Land Services as well. But so where to next? I think all these projects, almost the point of a lot of these projects a lot of the time is to get to that next project, to kind of build it so you can get onto the next one. It's never one and done. You're always sort of using it to get into the next project. And so up there, that picture up in the top right corner, that's from back in June this year. The Landcare Australia board had their board meeting at Port Stephens. So we organised to get them out to meet these landholders and get them all together and have a chat about the projects. That guy standing up in front of everybody is Jeff Lemessurier, who was the the Local Land Services officer at the time, who really got a lot of these guys together and got the projects off the ground. He's since retired. Was it because of the projects? I don't know, I can't confirm that. But we got him out of retirement to come along and have a chat to everyone. So it's a good sort of getting everyone back in together and keeping it moving. Actually, that person with the bluey purple shirt and the ponytail is Karen, who's the stepdaughter of Brian Royce, who we saw in the picture before. She, along with her partner Jeremy, has taken over management of that property, and she's now involved in a bit of a Birds on Farms pilot that we're doing down there to do a big shelter belt to sort of link up those protected areas with remnant vegetation. So, like, it's pretty cool that not only Brian got involved, but now the whole family's getting involved. Got a little working bee from last month, again planting out a little corridor that connects the remnant veg with the protected area. And bits of obscure, but that picture down there in the bottom right corner is a lot further up the Cooroo River on another property owned by Grant, who I was out there last month, and we've got it's probably even actually happening at the moment, we've got a project to fence out 600 metres of that river up at the top of the Cooroo River. And again, that's sort of born out of that original project. I'll be out there on Monday to chat to his neighbours to see if they want to extend the project along. And so it grows exponentially, doesn't it? Like, for every project you get, every person you get leads you to someone else. You keep involving those existing ones, but it just keeps growing and growing. And so that's my project. Just want to thank everyone that was involved. So this is definitely not limited to but Landcare Australia, particularly Rob Hunter and Shane Norris who are involved heavily. Matt Bell and staff at Mid Coast Council, the G8 landholders, Steve Lucas, Grant Ford and the intensive poultry farmers of the Cooroo River Valley, Hunter Local Land Services, specifically Kirby Byrne, Jeff Lemez and Michael Barbary, and Joel Dunn from Cooroo Great Lakes Landcare all made it happen. Those QR codes take you to little videos on all those 3 projects. And that's me done. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. That was a great presentation on some very significant landscape change. Probably got time for one quick question.
That's amazing. Thanks very much. It occurs to me that although 50,000 plants sounds like a lot, over the scale of the project. And you can't always tell from photographs, but you were planting trees. 800 trees for 600 metres of stream doesn't sound very much to me. It's different in different landscapes. Where I come from, we plant on 2 metre centres. So 600 metres of creek line would have 3,500 plants in it. So I just wonder, is it light on plants? Would you like to be doing much thicker revegetation?
Now, this is one of the... I wasn't there in 2010 when this project was undertaken, so this is all second, third-hand information. But they weren't completely denuded, partly, so they're also linked into other areas and protecting that existing vegetation. So I don't think it was unders in terms of the vegetation planting. They had we worked pretty closely. Like, we've got a senior ecologist with council who was heavily involved. Landcare helped plan it out as well. It was all planting, wasn't sort of direct seed or anything. But yeah, it definitely wasn't unders in terms of planting.
No worries, thank you. I think it also highlights the differences in our landscapes and stuff. I'm like you, we plant a lot more densely, but also learned up here that there are areas in northern Queensland that you don't even have